Well, Suella was right, wasn't she? Rwanda has been thwarted, as we all knew it would. What's been really striking about this is I'm sure Albie and some other panel members tonight will tell me how many lawyers there are as MPs in Parliament and how much money they spend on lawyers when they're looking at legislation. Was it because they wanted Rwanda plan to fail? Do they want to use the ECHR as a little toy to dangle at the electorate in the next election? Well, I think so. Now, what's really, really interesting about this, the government and Rishi Sunak has come out and said he's going to introduce emergency powers. All of a sudden, Rishi Sunak's managed to find some emergency powers he can introduce. Why wasn't he doing this a year ago, I wonder? Maybe it's because we don't want to reduce immigration in this country, as Suella has rightfully said. And now we know, once that emergency legislation comes through, that the ECHR is going to shove its boot on Britain's neck and try to stop any flight from leaving this country. There will be lawyers gluing themselves to that runway for a few bob, I can guarantee you that. But there are some simple solutions. In fact, I think even the Dominic Cummings even came out and said this, and I really don't like that man very much, but he actually made a very good point. Why can't the government just say that anyone who comes here by boat will never get legal status? Why can't we invest in some technology to see when these boats are arriving so we can tow them back to France? It's because I think our leaders don't intend to change the situation, and I guarantee you not a single flight will leave to Rwanda before the next election, and the Tories are going to use this as their big next Brexit campaign and dangle another carrot in front of the British public. So I firmly believe, we should withdraw from the ECHR right now, avoid the international humiliation, finally take our sovereignty, as we were promised time and time again by Brexit, into our own hands, introduce our own Bill of British Human Rights, which will enshrine so many of the similar laws that European Union will favour, and get it done. Let's actually get Brexit done, get out of the ECHR and be sovereign again. Now, Albie, the token Tory on the panel, what do you think about leaving the ECHR, and was Suella right?
I'm relaxed about leaving the ECHR. I actually thought the British Bill of Rights, that I think it was Dominic Raab, that was his idea. Right. I thought that was a perfectly reasonable idea. The idea that we'd leave the ECHR and not replace it is a nonsense. Of course, we would replace most of those rights that are in the ECHR and make them more appropriate to Britain. But I can't stand Suella Braverman, so no, she's not right about anything.
How can you say she's not right when she has literally been proven right this week?
And she's playing a character, because in her maiden speech in 2015, she spoke about tolerance and fellowship towards immigrants and hoped that our union with the EU would remain a happy marriage, and she promised to serve with humility, integrity and warmth. Now, Darren, I know in 2016 you were a Lib Dem and then 5 minutes later you decided you were a Brexiteer, but you were young. Suella Braverman, however, was an MP. That was her maiden speech, and she's done a complete 360.
Well, Darren, let me ask you this. As someone, who's famous for helping us get Brexit done, do you think we should leave the ECHR?
Oh, God, absolutely. I think we should scrap the Refugee Convention. It's a 1951 convention that was built for the post-war age, and now 700 million people are technically able and permissible to come to this country under that convention. It's insane.
I don't think it's going to happen as David Cameron as Foreign Secretary, though, is it?
No,
Let's face it.
George Osborne actually said that, which, of course, he was Chancellor under David Cameron, and he has said, under David Cameron as Foreign Secretary, we will not be doing any of this.
Yeah.
So that just is another reason why David Cameron is a wrong-un. And actually, I think it was David Cameron that suggested a British Bill of Rights originally, I think Theresa May toyed with it. And it just goes to show that he can take more positions than, the Kama Sutra.
Belinda, you were MEP, obviously. Yeah. What will be the response in the European Parliament to this if we did leave the ECHR?
Oh my gosh, I think it'll be very interesting, because I will expect the horror that, my gosh, this is ruining peace in Europe in our time. But actually, the mood across Europe, especially in countries like Italy, Denmark, Austria, even Germany, are now looking to the UK and going, we need to do something. The UK is onto something. And actually, as it's moving right across Europe in politics, the UK is suddenly moving all liberal again. We're going against the tide. I think the best way is that the EU, Europe comes together and they just suspend parts of the ECHR, there's no way we'll ever leave it. That's a dead duck. And do not believe the Tories if they say they're going to. They're just going to try and con us into voting for them again. They will suspend parts of it so that we can all use a Rwanda-style type of processing.
But wouldn't that be better than leaving it all together, reforming it so it actually works for modern Europe?
Well, no, if I could choose to leave it, I would absolutely leave it, because it is totally outdated. It's also a totally different monster to when it was first thought up. It's hugely overreaching.
Well, Benjamin, you know, I don't know if you describe yourself as a Starmerite. I don't know whether that's correct.
A cheerleader.
OK, right. How do you think Labour will respond? Let's say the Tories manage to get out of the ECHR by the next election, or use it as an election dangling tool. How do you think Keir's going to respond?
Well, I mean, polling says that people have more faith in Labour to solve this problem than the Tories, because the Tories haven't done anything. You know, Suella Braverman is the Kim Kardashian of Parliament. She is obsessed with media attention, but never does anything. And I think the truth is that she said she'd stop the boats. She didn't. She said she'd leave the ECHR. She didn't. She said she'd stop the hate marches, as she called it. She didn't. She said she'd tackle anti-Semitism. There was no suggestion of a change in laws. She said she'd cut the hotel bills. She didn't. I mean, I don't understand why right-wingers like Darren are hoodwinked by this woman who does nothing. I call her Slow Sue, because she's slow to get anything done.
Is it not the point, though, that Suella wasn't given the tools to stop the boats? I mean, there was no intention for Rishi Sunak to say, right, let's start towing the boats back.
No, I don't think that's true. I think there's plenty of tools in the Tory party.
And she did actually propose the change after the hate marches, which she called out, and she has been the only politician to call this out consistently.
But you know what? She tries to blame everyone else. And actually, I think it's quite the revelation of a politician. You know, politics is an art of diplomacy. Your inability to persuade anybody to go on that journey with you and to convince your colleagues is your failure.
And also your colleagues who agree with you on Rwanda, who agree with you on Brexit, who agree with you on getting immigration down. She lacks the political acumen and skill to get through her programme. And I think, unfortunately, she was over-promoted. She should never have become the Home Secretary. And that's why I say it's a good thing, actually, that David Cameron is back, because it's someone who actually knows what they're doing.
David Cameron really delivered for us. He got Brexit done. Thanks for that. But isn't the point here that, yes, you can bash Suella however long you want to, but she is right. There is no appetite in the high elite level of the Tories, which, you know, are now being surrounded by Rishi Sunak, as he's put all with Jeremy Hunt, Grant Shapps, David Cameron, all the boring old Tories, the liberal class Tories. There is no appetite for them to cut immigration because of GDP figures.
There's no political will at all in the Tory party to reduce immigration, and we need to get used to that.